Hey, Postman time! We will use Postman to perform our API queries and of course capture the responses because as the UI test scenarios or the cases, of course we can automate these tests, but before start coding, it's really a good opportunity to see what's going around, like sending queries in a very easy way and seeing the responses. It will help us to understand what kind of parameters and options we should use, we will need to perform our queries, and whenever we send those requests, what kind of responses we will have, what kind of response codes, and all the bodies. We will already understand the generic requirements, and then after everything is perfectly clear, we can start our coding. So by these terms, Postman will help us a lot to perform a initial investigation or just an exploratory session. So let's see what kind of features we can use in Postman. So I created a new workspace here because I had already one. But just to start from scratch, I created a new one. So now I have nothing like no collection, no request, no environment. And let's discuss all of this, like starting from a collection. What does a collection mean? A collection is a list of requests. Like we will have several requests that we can send to our servers and the endpoints, and then we will have the responses from the server. So we can collect them under different collections. For example, if I have one URL and I have another one, then I can create two collections for these two, right? Or maybe for different purposes, like I can collect all the post requests under one collection and all the get requests under the second one. It totally depends on our cases. But for now, let's just create one. But before doing that, I can already see an overview of this. Like I can already understand how it will look like. And I can already understand I can create some folders under the collection, right? It again will help me to arrange my request. It will just look like a file system, like how we collect different files, similar files under different folders. Similarly, we can arrange our request in this way. So let's create our first collection. It's already here, so let's name it like this is my first collection. Like I can rename it later on, but for now, just to understand, this is my first collection. And under the collection, a little bit zoom in to better see. This is the collection tab here. So under the collection, I can already add my request. But first of all, as we just discussed, let's create a folder here. So here, add a folder. Cool. So how shall we name this? Like, I think I have an open URL over which I can send my request. This was returning some images. So let's rename this like this is the image requests. Cool. So let's create another one. Like and I think I have another endpoint which returns some weather information depending on the location or the even the city, I guess. We will see those. So let's start actually. So here I can add a request. So adding a request is super simple. Like whenever we click this plus icon here, it by default opens a request tab here. So there are several ways. One way is just opening a new tab. By default, it opens a request, or under the folder, we can just add a request. So I already did it, so it's here, new request. So the first thing we will do is, as we remember from the API testing, in the request we have several fields, right? The first one is the URL or the URI, and then we have the method type. Here we can see different method types, and we will have the headers. Even without adding something, there are some headers here, which is added by default by Postman. And then if I need some body, I will add it here. For again, remembering from the API session, we don't need any body for the GET request in general, but for post, put, or patch, we will need some body objects here. So let me find my endpoint to get some images. I guess it was okay. Copy from my other window. It is something like this. So first of all, let's see from the browser actually, right? Let me open a browser here. If I go here, cool. I can already see some images. So this is the endpoint that I'm calling. So here I have an ID. If I change the ID, like I don't know what I will have, and I guess the rest is just the dimensions. Like if I change this to something like this, wow, cool. All right, so let's try this in Postman, right? So now I don't know what I'll have. I'm just changing the ID, and I wanna see a bigger dimension, not that big. That's it. Like I have already the URL. I know it's a GET request, and I don't need any custom header. I'll go just with the default ones, and I don't need any body for my GET request. So I'll just send. I sent the request, and I already see the response in the below section. It's here. So what do I see in the response? I have the response body. In this case, it is just an image, but otherwise it could be just raw text or I don't know, something else. Maybe a downloadable file as well. And other than that, I have the response code. In this case, it is 200, which was standing for a successful response, right? If it is 400, I would understand I sent my request in a wrong way. It was some wrong format. Or if I had 401 or 403, I would understand I had some authentication or authorization issues. Or if I have a 500, I would understand that the server was having some issues, like it was having a internal server error. So this response code helps me a lot to understand even without checking the body or the further details. And in this case, I understood it is successful. So I would be able to get the response details. So when I check the body, I saw the image already. So let's try something else. Like, I don't know what happens if I remove the dimensions, if there is a default dimension set. No, there is no such endpoint. So it returned me 404, not found. Cool. What if I remove the ID itself as well? Again, 404. Like I'm trying to maybe create some 400 situation. Like what happens if I just randomly put something here? Image does not exist. Yeah, as expected. Anyway, so for all of these, it returned 404. But what do we already know? We already know how to create a collection, how to create a request and folders, and how to send our request, and how to see the responses. And it's really cool because I can see the response returning duration as well. In this case, it was just 280 seconds. I assume for a real image it would take longer, right? Because there will be a real data transport. Like, is there such an ID? Yes, there is. Oh, is it the same one? Hmm, cool. So in this case, it was 22 milliseconds. If I download the bigger size, Now, not 22 seconds, but 4 seconds, right? From 22 milliseconds to 4 seconds. Cool. So let's proceed. What else I can do? Like, for example, this. Do I have another endpoint in this URI? Maybe I don't. But I have another endpoint. So let's try something else, which is. Oh, I have one Google Translate endpoint. Cool. Let's create another folder for that. This will be Translate. Okay. And here, let's create our request, which will be something like this, Google Translate, and this will just get all the list of languages which I can operate. So yeah, so I had 401, right, which says unauthorized. I can't perform this request because I need an API key. So in this documentation, let's try to open this page. From here, there will be some instructions to create an API key, and I need that key to perform this request because, oh, not this one, this one. So here, for example, this one, this URI is an open and public API, right? Everyone can use it. So most of the time, some APIs are open and public, but some of them are still public but requires an API key. So first you have to register yourself, and then you can use your requests by attaching those API key. Because it makes sense, right? Because like if there are huge number of people using the same API, of course they want to limit the usage. So sometimes they even set a quota, like every day you have 20 number of requests you can do. If you try to do the 21st one, then you will get an error. So there is a quota in some API, so it depends on this server. So this is totally free and totally open, but this one is free, but first you have to create an API key for yourself. So here I have already the request, even though it is not working yet because I did not attach the API key, but I can already save this under my folder. So let's do that. This is here and this is under translate. Save. Cool. So actually it is better to name the even the requests properly, right? Because this is a new request, but I don't understand what new request is. But what was it? It is? It was just getting an image, right? Get image by ID. I was changing the ID from the URL parameter, and then it was returning the relevant image. And now this is getting all the languages. Cool. So yeah, let's check this page. Yes, here. Yeah, first of all, we have to go to the developer dashboard and we can see our API key under the authorization tab. I already have it, so let me try to find. By the way, I think it's a good time to show you how I can export and import my request, because now we already know how we can create collections, folders and requests. Now I will show you how we can export this, because for example, let's say this is a request which is working properly and I want to share it to my teammates. How can I do that? Let me go to my other workspace. I have it here. So here I have again the similar folders, and this is the request that is working. Like normally it should work. Like this is the same URI, right? It is here. Get languages. Yes. Okay, this is a good size to see. And where is the other one? It is here. Cool. So when I send this, it is returning the response with the successful response code. And I can see which languages I can use. There are several acronyms. I don't know most of them. Like this should be Hungary. This should be Italy. This should be Netherlands. Okay, let's see. Let's try to figure out. But why did it work and the other did not work? Because I can already see. Let me resize this. I can already see there are 7 headers here, but here I have 10 headers. What I have here, I have the API key and the API host, right? So of course I cannot see all the key because it is a private one. Everyone should have their own keys. But what I can do is I can already export this and import to my other workspace. So first, oh, sorry, I cannot export the individual request, but I can export at least the collection, right? So this practice collection I can export here. Okay. Where? Like under the, let's go downloads. Okay, save. Cool. So now if I import from where? From here, I can select the files, which will be, which one? This one, right? Yes. I already imported the collection which I exported from my other workspace. So here, was it this one? Yes, I believe it was. So let me just move it here. So I don't need this anymore, right? So let's delete this. And let's move under translate. If I send, cool, I'm having this. All right, what else we can see? Hmm. I have another endpoint from the same server. This time not languages, but the translate endpoint itself, which will help me to translate some text values. So I will need, this is a post request, right? It is not get anymore. So first of all, let me move it here. All right. And since it's post, of course, I would need some body. And the body, like something that I want to translate. Like, what shall we translate? I wonder if it translates to Japanese. Let's try. It will be a little bit challenging. So let's try. And I had 400. Why? Because invalid value. Where? In the source language. What is the source language? Source language is English, right? Again? At this time, target language, JP. Oh, okay. Let's try to see what languages I had here. Japanese was not there. Or maybe it's JA. Okay, cool. I wonder if it will translate as Konnichiwa minasan. Minasan konnichiwa. Okay, it's also acceptable. Cool. So this is my second request. And why did I do that? Because I wanted to show you creating some environmental variables. Like even before, uh, like here, before I changed this value, do you remember it was something like, can I go back? Ah, yeah. It was something like this, right? So actually, this was a variable and it was not resolved for some reason. But now let's try to figure out how I can manage my environmental variables. So I intentionally copy these two requests because there are some common uh, parameters or different variables. At least the URL itself, right? So for example, this one, whenever I will create some new request, I don't want to copy all this each time. So what I can do is like here, this whole URL, let's turn into a variable. How I can do that? After selecting, I'll right click, not like this. Mm, can't I do that? No. I guess there was an option to quickly do that, but okay, I'll try to do that. But first of all, let's create an environment here. This is my environment for translate server. Okay, and let's add a new variable. This is my server URL. And what is the value? The value is this one. All right. So now I can set this value like, I see. Whenever you click, you have this option set as variable. I'm already in the variable, in the environment tab now. I don't need it here, but let me go there. For example, okay, it is in the options, maybe not in here. So okay, let's set this as a variable as well. What is name? Name is source language. So under where I want to save this, I created an environment for myself, right? It is the uh, sorry, just a second. Let me first choose my environment. So here I have the environment. I created an environment for myself, which was the env translate. So let's select this. Okay. Now, if I want to create a variable for this, yes. But let me do it one more time. Okay, and set as variable, new variable. Okay, now it asks me how I want to save this variable. First, I can define it as a global. Like, okay, let me save as global. And what is this name? Server. Oh, this is a different one. This is the source language. Source language global, right? Cool. Yes, very good. So is it still working? It is. So we can already understand I need this curly braces. So I can do the same here. So I can already see the auto completion options. It was server URL. Okay. There's something wrong here. What is it? It's okay. Oops, I changed the value of server URL. Let's go to this. So it was initially set to this value, but then when I was trying to save the language, I did something wrong, so I changed this value. So let's fix it. Okay, now it should work. Yes, now it is working. So I have two variables now, the server URL, and when I hover over this, I already see the initial value and the current value. So if I'm dynamically setting, I can see what was the initial value, what is the current value, and here as well. So the server URL I saved under my environment, right, which was the mtranslate. And this one I saved as a global. So what is the difference? For example, I have my environment selected here. If I do not select any environment, then what will happen? I still see this source length global because it is global. Whatever environment I'm choosing, I can see it. But see, this time it is unresolved, right? Because I don't have any environment selected. And since the scope of this variable was limited under the relevant environment, since I did not select as of now, I cannot see it. It is not resolved. But I can add this as global. So what was it? Let's copy from here. It was this one, right? So I will add this as a global now. Now it is resolved and it returns the correct response. Cool. So now I do not have to duplicate this each time. I just can use the variable like this. Yay, it's still working. Cool. So what did we learn so far? Collections, folders, requests, import, export, and environment with the scopes, right? So collections are here, environments are here, and import option was here, and collection export was available under the menu list. It is here. Cool. What else we can do? Like export is not available only as a JSON. Like this export will save the whole collection as a JSON file. But again, maybe I don't want to export the whole collection. I will export only one request. So what can I do? I will go to the relevant request. It was, let's say this one, okay. And I want to export this. So here, when I see this icons here I have a code option. And it will return this query to a code snippet. It's super cool feature. Like if I just execute this curl, let's see what will happen. I already had the response, but since it is an image file, I just have some warnings. It says like, if you want to open, then I can save and open in the file system. But I could already perform this request. And what else I can do? I can convert this into different languages. Like in Java, it will look like which library is best. For example, let's use this one, HTTP. It will look like this. What else? Let's see how it looks like in Python. Requests. Yes, it will look like this. So, you know what? Let's try this with JavaScript. So, last time I used which one? Fetch. So, let's try the same. It will be something like this. Okay, I copy it. And I'm finding my ID. It is here. And okay, cool. I have already the empty test. It's ready for implementing. So let's just paste here. And that's it. That's it. I only have some typer because I'm using TypeScript. So let me just quickly get rid of it by eliminating the type here. Okay. Okay, it will print out the console. So let's just add this await keyword here, just to avoid having some asynchronity issues. Playwright test, my test. Oh, I need a newer version. All right. Here you are, sir. Let's execute again. Yay. What happened now? Oh, fetch is not defined. Okay. Let's import. Import fetch. Yes. How about now? Yay. Like a metric scene. Because it's an image, right? I wanted to print out the context, and the raw context is, of course, something which we cannot understand, which stands for the binary context of the image. But you see, it is super convenient to uh, convert to a code. So whenever we are using Postman, before starting the coding, we can already see all these uh, queries, requests, responses, and we can quickly change to whatever language we are using, with whatever library. Like even if you are using JavaScript, we have the jQuery or XHR or fetch options, and in Node.js, Axios, request, and several options we have. Cool. What else we can do? Let's continue. So I can execute this request in a sequence. So this is automation is possible even in Postman. So first of all, I wanna execute this query, like, or let's say first I wanna execute the get. So first I will understand what languages are supported, and then I will do a translate option, right? So I want to execute these two in a sequence automatically, because now what I'm doing is, it is not a big deal, but I'm just performing this and then this. Now I want Postman to execute them automatically by itself. Because you know what? Sometimes there can be even further automation. Like whenever we get the response, we can parse the response, and we can set some environmental variables from this response, and we can use it in the next run or in the next request. So let's see what we can do. First of all, let's create this sequential run. For this, we will need a runner. So whenever I open a new tab, let me try to get rid of this. Let's save this. Let's save this. Okay, everything is saved. Hmm. not here. Mhm. So under the file menu, but unfortunately it's in my other screen. So we will see a new runner tab. But let me try to use the shortcut. Yes, it worked. So the shortcut is, or let me try to show you how it looks like. Okay, it's here. It's something like this. Under the file menu, there's the new tab, new runner tab. So I select the new runner tab. And it opened a runner for me. So now I can uh, create an execution for myself. So first of all, let's, I don't need this. First of all, let's select which request I want to execute. So it will be under collections and these two I want to execute, right? So let's drag this under the run order. Cool. So can I change the order? Yes, I can. Cool. So first get and then post. And do I need to run manually, or maybe I can even schedule? Like I can specify which time I want to execute, like every night or just once or whatever it is. But for now, let's try to execute manually. And how many times? Like, let's try 2 times, right? Why not? Okay. Run. Yes. In the first iteration, I get 200, I get 200, 200, 200. And I see the response times as well. Everything is here. View summary. And we have the detailed results. Cool. So this was the total duration. This was 2 iterations. And actually, this is mostly used for executing tests, right? Because I will execute the whole sequential run and I'll see what is failing and what is passing. But what am I talking about? Like, I don't have any pass fail criterion yet. But of course, I can add. So let's try to see how we can do that. So as we are doing in test automation, we can use before test and after test fixtures, right? Or the testing patterns. So we can do the same in Postman. So before running the request, we can already perform some actions. So this is called as pre-request script in Postman. So let's see here. For example, here I can see my tabs again. This is the params, authorization, headers, body. And here I can have the pre-request script. Cool. So here I can already set some steps, specify some steps. So let's do something like, I already have this variable, but let's assume I don't. So first of all, I want to set this variable. So I can just cheat from here, this cheat list. Set a global variable. Very cool. So I can already see like where was my, let's say I will use server URL 2. In this case, it doesn't work, right? The request is not successful. But if I do this automatically with the pre-request script before starting the execution, this and Where is the URL? It is this one. Just copy from here. Okay. Now, if I execute this, I got the successful response. What did I do here? First of all, in the request itself, I'm using some variables, a global variable, but initially I did not have this variable defined. But inside the request, with the pre-request script, I set it automatically. So why I'm doing this? Because I can do, this is just like a code, right? Code snippet. So I can do something dynamically. Like even this value I can define as a string, and depending on the circumstances, I can change the value. So let's see what we can do. For example, so maybe I will just explain the test as well. So here, the tests are the blocks which are performed after the request. So press request was before script, before request, and test is the after request. So let's see what we can do. For example, again, I can set some variables like, or again, here from the cheat list, I can see several assertions like status code should be 200. See, PM response to have status 200. Cool. What else? Response body should contain some string. Okay. By the way, I can separate this test into another one. All right. What else? Okay. I guess it's enough for now. By the way, doing this test in the other requests makes more sense because this is a huge string, but the other one would be easier to check. This one, right? So here, my expected string value is here. So let's create a test here. Okay. Normally, I want to see this string in my response. Cool. This is to include, right? But this is just the equal check. So let's see if it works. Did it? Let's go to the test results. I can see two of them passed, like status code is 200, it's passed. Body matches the string, it passed. But this one did not, right? Because normally I wanted it to be equal this one, but this is only a part of the whole body. The body is the whole object, but I want it to be equal to only here. So it is better to have this include check, not the this one. But just to have a fail result, let's keep it and let's execute our runner one more time. New runner tab, and let's add this one. Oh, by the way, I have an idea. Let's do something else. So the second test will depend on the first, right? Okay, I think it's a good idea. What I can do here, the target language I want to set in the first, depending on the result of the first. Let's say target language. Okay, very good. Because I don't have it yet, right? But I will set it after executing the first one here. After I execute as a test. Test means running after the execution. So set a collection variable. Actually it was setting a global variable, right? So let's copy here. It was PM globals, not PM collection variables, globals. What was it? Target length, and it was J. Actually, I can parse it even from here. Like, I don't know, maybe I can calculate the index and I can just parse the relevant index, but for now, let's just write it in this way. So what I'm doing here, if I run this, first, this query will execute, and after the execution, I will set a target language variable, and this target language variable will be used in my second query as an input. So I have both prescript and the test blocks. Let's see what will happen now. I execute. Okay, finished. So I can run again. But what happened now in the first execution iteration? The first one executes successfully. I got 200. And even the second is 200. So I can already understand setting the variable worked here. But checking the tests, in the first request, I did not have any test. So there is no test found. But in the second one, I have 3 of them. And 2 of the tests passed, while the last one failed, as we expect, right? The assertion was not correct. All right. I guess this was all. Like using the environmental variables, running a long collection in a sequential execution by means of creating runners, and importing, exporting, all the basic features, I guess we already covered.